How do you react when your life is disrupted? And let's define disruption. There's a certain pattern. You wake up a certain time every day, go to work, things you rely on, the coordinates that are consistent in our lives. Whether it's work, whether it's at home, whether it's our relationships. When those things get disrupted, it creates a certain disorientation because we thrive. We thrive on predictability, on routines. Something's happening at a certain time, a certain place. Especially children. It's so important for their own development to know they can depend upon. They come home from school, there'll be someone there. What room they sleep in. When anyone experiences disruption, especially an ongoing, persistent disruption, it creates insecurity. And that's why it's so uncomfortable. We all went through COVID. It disrupted literally every facet of our lives. We all know what had happened as a result. Now some grew through it, but many suffered greatly. Today, there's another forms of disruption, whether it's in the political arena, whether it's the wars that are being fought. Definitely an uncertainty that hovers over our lives. And with technology, of course, it gets amplified. So it only adds to the collective disruption in our lives. And the disorientation that comes as a result. So what do you do in times like that? Do you just hunker down, retreat, cower in fear? Or can you do something greater where you take control over it? Which seems to be a paradox, because the whole idea of disruption is that you lost control. If we were to write a headline for this period in time, and we can look back in decades from now, what happened the years of the early part of the millennia, of the third millennium, meaning after the year 2000. And we're now in 2024. Basically, almost a quarter of this new century. I would say one of the main headlines would be disruptive times. And disruption both in some positive ways and, of course, in negative ways. We all remember September 11th, 9/11. We just commemorated recently. It's a major disruption. Yes, we rebuilt and perhaps became stronger, but it woke us up to not be lulled into a certain complacency. Doesn't mean we still are in that place of all alert and vigilant, but that was an early disruption right in the beginning of the millennium, beginning of the 21st century. Technology, in a positive way, disrupted commerce, the way we do business, the way we communicate, the way we disseminate information. New industries emerged, replacing old ones. But the old doesn't just go away. So there was a disruption. The internet, the web, then of course the big behemoths like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple. Recently, AI has become the entire craze of disrupting, again, some people call it greater than the Industrial Revolution. So yes, there can be negative things that come out of it, but many people see these disruptions, as actual positive. A new paradigm is being born. And indeed, before a paradigm is born, there's going to be a disruption of the old paradigm. Look in the world of politics. Donald Trump's election 8 years ago disrupted politics, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. Now, with the presidential election looming, again, disruption. And not always in a positive sense. The war, Russia and Ukraine, in the Middle East, which doesn't seem to go away. More disruptive forces at work. So initially and ostensibly, this can definitely leave us very demoralized and disoriented. What are you going to do about it? We don't have control. It's like storm after storm. You wake up in the morning, you hear about another assassination attempt. It's just to give an example. And we all know anything could happen any moment. God should bless us. We should only have good news. So, interestingly, just as we're discussing this, we're a week away from the Hebrew New Year, which I like to call the Universal New Year, because it's the birthday of the human race, Rosh Hashanah. And it's called New Year, a time of renewal. So it's very appropriate to talk about renewal in face of and in times of disruption. And you say, 1 second, if anything disruption, we should at least just maintain damage control. It's like, when a company, for example, is going through major upheaval or change, what you do is then you take accounting, you don't experience renewal. That comes afterwards. But in truth, as we shall discuss, renewal is actually the best way to deal with disruption and the best way to understand its role. So let's introduce a theme, a topic. This is from the Kabbalistic and mystical teachings, Hasidic teachings. And that topic is called, I'll say it in Hebrew, that there are 3 stages in any development, any true development, from one state to another. A metamorphosis from one paradigm to another paradigm. And it's called Yesh, Ayin, and Yesh. Yesh means a state of being. Certain state that you're familiar with. Ayin is a void and a vacuum. And that's always necessary when you go to the next stage, which is the final Yesh, a new paradigm. A butterfly being transformed, a caterpillar being transformed into a butterfly. A seed deteriorating, eroding, rotting in the ground as it slowly becomes, sprouts into a plant, into a flower, into a tree. The pains of birth, of pregnancy and of birth pains to bear a new child. The crack of the egg for a chick to emerge. The melting down of one piece of material, piece of gold, in order to turn it into a beautiful element. The creativity that follows the frustration. The greater the creativity, the more the frustration. Because when you're coming to create something new, a new birthing will always include the shedding of the previous skin, previous layer, in order to assume a new layer of skin. And that has to be uncomfortable, or else it's just an extension of the past. So wherever you find renewal, you're going to find disruption. So in essence, disruption is really a stage. If you get stuck in that place, into that vacuum, that's a problem. But if you realize it's actually a transition from one state to another, it changes the entire picture. It doesn't make it necessarily more comfortable, it's more bearable. And more importantly, you understand the value of it. To get us out of that status quo, of a mechanical routine, the monotony of the quotidian, a disruption helps shake us up. It's like getting out of your comfort zone in order to go from good to excellent, from one state to another state. So we do indeed have, once a year, a major renewal, which is the renewal of the new year, like a new moon, a new birthing. But in truth, it's all the time. It's just on a smaller scale, maybe less obvious. So in truth, when you see changes that are so disruptive, what we have to do is look and say, hold a second here. What is this leading to? Where is it leading us to? Instead of just raising your arms and say, oh wow, this is completely disrupted, this is completely disturbed my plans, or disturbed the past, or disturbed the predictability. Allowing in fresh air, allowing in a new perspective, and ultimately a new paradigm. But for that, you need to have the big picture. You need to see it that way. Now, what about man-made disruptions, meaning people perpetrating crime, violence, war against each other? So obviously, we need to choose, and choose wisely. As the Bible puts it, choose life. But even there, where the person who has caused a problem, meaning someone who's done a crime or in any other way hurt others, they're responsible and accountable for their behavior. But the one it happens to has to still look at it, okay, what do I learn from this? So even though you can say we wish it never happened, and we definitely do wish it never happened, but at the end of the day, we can learn, and it's a wake-up call. A wake-up call for us to grow through the process. So this is another entirely new way of looking at your life, looking at the ups and downs of your life, the vicissitudes, and discovering that, listen, the key challenge here is how to navigate the waves, the storms, the rising and ebbing, the ebb and flow of the tides of our lives. And many of them are unpredictable, absolutely. But a good swimmer navigates. A good swimmer has confidence. So even when something comes that you weren't prepared for, and it may even throw you, nevertheless, you rely on the skills that you've developed over the years that allows you to navigate even the unknown. Since October 7th, which is almost a year ago, in the Hebrew calendar was the end of the Jewish holiday season, Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah. It has disrupted many of our lives, especially those that care about Israel, about the Jewish people. The attacks, the hatred, the anti-Semitism. And it's clearly not going away. The latest conflagration, the latest escalation north of Israel, Lebanon. So based on my training, and I was trained to be a spiritual soldier, which means when there is disruption of that nature, you don't retreat, you don't run away, you don't escape. You take the bull by the horns, and just like there's the physical war, the military war, there's a spiritual part of the war. What I mean by spiritual, it means the hope we need, the courage, the clarity, the conviction, because it's so easy to just be overwhelmed. That's what disruption does, as we've been discussing. So I remember from the very moment when October 7th, the holiday ended, I began recording program after program. I was in California at the time, and I sat that evening. It was Sunday night. The attack of October 7th was Saturday morning. The holiday ended here Sunday night, and I recorded 20 or 30 short pieces. I've never stopped since. Why am I saying this? I'm using myself as an example. Because the crisis, the challenges, the complete shock of it all could paralyze you, or it can motivate you. I was trained that it has to motivate. We have to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Now that's how I was trained. It wasn't like I came up with it. I'm sharing it because I believe each one of us has to have that attitude, both collectively and individually, when there's disruption in our lives. It's not enough just to maintain, meaning to survive, but we need to learn to thrive. We need to learn to say, oh wow. And indeed, I see it as a tremendous wake-up call that has affected so many people, and now we have to know how to respond. You know, when your values are challenged, your very morality, your ethics, the very bedrock of what you consider to be so fundamental, you could either throw up your hands and say, oh no, or you could say, now is the time to prove what we're capable of. You really believe in these values, in these foundations? Fight for it. Demonstrate its power, its importance. Because at the end of the day, though you need military war when you have sworn enemies, but it's really at the end of the day ideology. It's a psychological war of who will prevail, whose values will prevail. Will it be hate? Will it be darkness? Will it be violence? Will it be pain? Will goodness become the ultimate victor? So in a strange way, darkness actually can make light stronger. Hate can make love greater. And that goes back to the navigation that we need to employ in times like this. I often quote, especially in these times, Warren Buffett, who said about investments, about finance, you don't know who's been swimming naked until the tide is out. When the tide is in, the water is high, you can't know. Everything is riding, everything. The light is shining, you don't see the cracks. When the water goes out, when the tide is out, then you suddenly see who's who. When we're challenged. And of course, the objective here is to become stronger in the process. That's the true story of renewal. That's the true story of the holiday season. And that's the true story of the 60-day journey. If you're familiar with my book, 60 Days, Spiritual Guide to the High Holidays, we have it now in podcast form. You can get it by email. It's recently been published and translated into Spanish. It's become more and more popular. It's essentially this story, the story of love, betrayal, and reclaiming and reconciliation and rebuilding. Love, of course, is a beautiful thing. Betrayal is a form of tremendous disruption to the love, to the trust, to everything that comes with that security. And then there's the rebuilding, that you can rebuild something even stronger, even if it's been betrayed. This is the story of these days. As we go into the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, then to Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, the birthday of forgiveness, of hope, that mortal human beings, flawed human beings that are not perfect, can repair, can forgive, can atone, can build something even stronger through their cracks. And hence renewal coming from the seeds of the disruption. As the book of Psalms puts it, those that sow in tears will reap in joy. The tears drops become like raindrops that ultimately give birth to great new things. But you have to look at the bigger picture. So this is not a justification, and this is not looking that we have to go out and look for disruption and look for pain or loss. But once it happens, this is a formula, a recipe of how one becomes a greater person in the process. But for that, you need to hold on to a bigger picture. Because going back to human nature, something doesn't go the way you like it. It shakes us up. It weakens us. But when you're connected to something greater than you are, the purpose of life, the very mission for which you were sent to this world, then the disruptions are part of that mission. And it's your job is learn to navigate and use them as catalysts, as springboards, to grow and become even greater in the process. This is a tremendously important lesson in our lives, a lesson we need to share with our children, with anyone we come in contact with, because so often we all are going to face challenges and setbacks in life. And so often, it weakens us. It causes us to become fearful, insecure. It demoralizes. It disorients. So understanding that all those negative experiences can be turned, those liabilities, into assets, is a lesson that will serve us in every area of life. Whether it's in our relationships, our marriages, our relationships with friends, with children, whether it's at work, whether it's in general the aging process as we grow older and we may become more fragile or become more vulnerable. It's dealing with all the fears and insecurities that so often immobilize us or limit us, the constraints, the impediments. Well, there's always some renewal going on if you access it within. If you allow yourself to be a victim of circumstances, you can't control circumstances, instead of navigating circumstances, then you become a product, you become a victim, or a product of circumstances. So we have to look at circumstances as all these different storms and ups and downs, but we have to know how to navigate. And realize that within you, within each one of us, there's a soul that's constantly being renewed. Like a renewed engine, constantly being renewed. Every morning when we wake up, We have a fresh, renewed contract with our divine calling. And that's why we acknowledge it. There's that one-line prayer I talk about often, Moda Ani, thank you for returning my soul to me. It's a validation, it's an embrace, it's a celebration of what makes you unique. Vote of confidence that you're capable, no matter what, if you access your soul. So the body ages. The material world physically erodes, is subject to the changes and the shifts of mortality, eroding, deteriorating, and ultimately perishing. But the soul never dies. The spirit only gets stronger, but you have to access it. So you're going to access that fire within, that sparkle, or you're going to succumb and resign yourself, so-called, to the outer part of the appliance that goes through these changes and gets weaker. It's a choice we have to make in every moment of our lives. So as this will be the last class before the Hebrew New Year, it's a great time to recommit and renew our commitment to renewal itself. You may say, so how do I do that? I've already gotten used to the monotony of life, the routines. I can't really go there. It's by doing new things. It's by saying new things. It's by thinking new things. Not that complicated. You have to act. So you have to act in a new way. If you become very predictable, meaning you're grouchy in these situations, certain situations, you can't forgive, you can't ask for forgiveness, you're trapped in your own biases or prejudices, this is a time where you bring in fresh air. Let me try something new. Try something new. Try to talk to people a little differently. Be gentler, be kinder. Get your mind stimulated, excited by new ideas, especially transcendent ones. Your heart, emotions, instead of it being just the same boring routine, let it be stimulated by a song, by a poem, by a prayer, by interacting with others, by being creative in your love, instead of just relying on being an automatic pilot. And finally, in your actions, in your good deeds, acts of kindness, acts of generosity, reaching out to people, sharing a kind word, being charitable, and do it with a certain newness, not the way you did it before, a little more. Push yourself a little more. That's how you draw renewed energy in your life. It's very hard to imagine how a person is going to bring newness into a life where they're just doing the same thing. It's like insanity, they say, right? Is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I like to put it this way: if you think what you thought and you say what you said, you do what you did, it's a mathematical certainty you're going to have what you had. You want something new, new result? Think differently, speak differently, do differently, act differently. Then there will be a different result, cause and effect, action, reaction. But we have to apply ourselves. We can't take it for granted. We can't just go into that rote by rote automatic pilot approach to life. And you do it step by step. It doesn't have to be dramatic cold turkey. Introduce fresh air into your life. New friends, new book, a new commitment to join a class. Whatever it may be, that new commitment will draw new energy into your life and new blessings. Renewal in times of stagnation, in times of depression, in times of resignation. And in times of disruption. Finding renewal in times of disruption. May you be blessed, you and your family and your loved ones. It's a very healthy, sweet, and positive new year with all this new energy. May it be a year far, far better than the previous. With all the blessings we've had, we'd have great challenges. All innocent people be protected wherever they may be. hostages released unscathed, and a year of personal and global redemption. But we are part of it. We can't just wait for it to happen. We have to make it happen. Through our efforts, through our work, through our diligence, through our unity, through our connection. So it's been a great honor as the curtain comes down on this year, the Hebrew year 5784. Great honor to continue to be connected with you, friends, students, teachers, that we're all part of this larger cosmic composition, cosmic symphony. And I'd love to hear from you as well, your thoughts, your feedback. Please share, and please subscribe to our offerings, both at our website, meaningfullife.com, and our YouTube. And may I also say, being at the end of the year, and it's a good thing, if you want gifts from above, the more compassion you show, the more compassion will be shown to you. Please help support us if you consider our cause worthy. We've been creating more programming than ever to respond to the challenges of these trying times. But there's much more work to be done, as we see. So please consider supporting. Go to meaningfullife.com/donate. In honor of the new year, be generous, be giving. But partnership is also in every possible way, including sharing these ideas, sharing these thoughts, creating a ripple effect, a butterfly effect. Everyone be blessed, a blessed year, a healthy year. This has been Simon Jacobson, meaningfullife.com. Be well, and I look forward to experiencing renewal with you, together with you, each of us individually and all together in a powerful, synergetic fashion. Be blessed and be well. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by the Meaningful Life Center. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at meaningfullife.com/donate.